It's time for another episode of Between Two Succulents. Now, here's your host, Brandon Rashad Butts.
Hey everybody, welcome to yet another amazing episode of Between Two Succulents. I'm of course your friendly neighborhood bookseller, Brandon Rashad Butts. I'm very excited to get into today's book. We have something that is a very good read as well as represents a lot of poignant issues that we talk about and that we would love to share more light on as we continue to develop and grow as a country, embracing all of our brothers and sisters from all backgrounds. I want to start off by just introducing you guys a little bit about our author for this week. Zeyn Joukhadar is the author of the novel and a member of an author and a member of the Radius of Arab American Writers. His work has appeared in Kink Stories, Salon, the Paris Review, Shondaland, Pank, Mizna, and elsewhere. He has also been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, which is awesome, and the Best of the Net. His book, The 30 Names of Night, won the 2021 Barbara Gittings Stonewall Book Award and the 2021 Lambda Literary Award in Transgender Fiction, which is also amazing. Do some research on Lambda. That's a great one. Zeyn has received fellowships from the Montalvo Arts Center, Lucas Arts Program, the Arab American National Museum, the Breadloaf Writers Conference, the Camargo Foundation, and the Yosef and Ani Albers Foundation. Everyone, please help me welcome to our show, Zeyn Joukhadar. Zeyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Amazing. It is really, truly a pleasure to have you on board. Today, we're going to be talking with Zeyn with his sophomore novel, The 30 Names of Night. Now, you might have heard that his first novel, The Map of Salt and Stars, is being translated into 20 different languages. So that's a great excuse for you to go ahead and brush up on your Duolingo. But today, we're going to focus on the sophomore novel, but only after we take us into our next segment that, of course, we all know and have come to love as All Sucks. Zeyn, what we're going to do is show you and showcase our two succulent VIPs for this week. And then from there, you're going to let me know which one makes you want to paint a succulent-sized mural in its honor. Zeyn, are you ready to go?
I'm so ready. Let's do it.
Amazing. All right, Joe, tell us about our two VIP succulents for the day.
Zeyn, today we have a fairy's washboard, a charming, compact succulent. Native to southern Africa, fairy's washboard features a rosette of triangular leaves with distinct ridges. These ridges resemble the texture of a washboard, giving it the common name fairy's washboard. The leaves create a spiral effect that is quite dizzying when looking at the plant from above. The plant produces flower clusters in the summer, but the flowers are not showy. It grows best in bright light and warm, dry climates. Fairy's washboard! Now, our second plant of the day, our succulent, is the Cushioned Peperomia. Ooh, a small, semi-succulent perennial species native to Peru in the rainforests of South America. The scientific name refers to its connection to the pepper plant. Other names include happy bean or green bean peperomia. The pincushion peperomia plant grows up to 12 inches tall and features narrow and slender, juicy lime green leaves, which are pea-pod shapes. It likes bright, indirect light and humidity, but it cannot tolerate direct sunlight or full sun. Zeyn, it's a battle between the succulents. Which one's it gonna be?
This is amazing. I think I love the name Happy Bean. I feel like I need that. I need more happy beans in my life, so I'm gonna go with the happy bean.
You are correct!
Woo! Who doesn't need more happy beans? Awesome. Thanks for playing along with us, Zeyn. We love that little game that we do here. Now we are going to jump right on into the 30 Names of Night. Now, I am fairly fresh and new to your work. However, I've got to say that I believe that if we're going to discuss literature, specifically that birthed from the LGBT community, specifically that birthed from the trans community, we cannot discuss the work without including your work as well. You truly earned your spot at the table in that sense, in my opinion. So with 30 Names of Night, I picked up on how there's like a level of shedding that is sort of involved with some members of the LGBTQ plus community that deals with a great uh, a certain amount of adversity surrounding their identity, sort of molting of the process when stepping into whatever your definition of yourself is. Often the fight against that adversity, however, is presented when survival is most at stake, and silence is kind of deemed as not just the most appropriate tool, but almost the only option when it comes to self-preservation. How does that narrative or that reality help or hinder our protagonist on his journey?
Yeah, I mean, queer and trans people have been written out of a lot of histories, and there's a lot of powerful forces for whom it's more palatable or advantageous to say that, queerness is an inherently white Western invention, or that, to sort of erase or tokenize very marginalized people in general. And especially when we're talking about like communities of color, immigrant communities, Muslims living in America, like the most marginalized people in those groups do tend to get treated in that way, whether it's being tokenized or just erased entirely. And so like, just because there's silence doesn't mean that people didn't or don't exist. And that's a big thing for this character throughout the novel, that he's learning and learning about his ancestors, but also about people sort of in the larger community. And so, visibility sometimes can mean risking more violence for someone who's really marginalized. And so when he starts to learn about his ancestors and his own community, I think he also learns that like the Western concept of outness doesn't necessarily equal validity. And so for him, like one thing that shows up for him, like even on a structural level in the novel, is using silence as a kind of counter erasure. So like in his chapters in the book, until he chooses his new name, his dead name is actually scribbled out by hand. I actually scribbled out the name to just like critique that sort of desire, maybe even in the reader, to know that information that he's intentionally withholding and saying, I may not have all the control over the narrative that gets put out there about me, but I'm going to take back control over whatever I can, even if it's just to cross out that dead name.
Yeah, and it's like there's this slight it's I almost hesitate to use the word struggle when I say power struggle, because there is like such a great it's like there's, I mean, well, I guess, because the power's there and the reality is there. It's in you. You just have to tap into it. But then, like you said, visibility doesn't always equal validity, which I think is a massive part of what it means to come out, and this whole process of coming out. You know what I'm saying? Because that doesn't mean that you automatically come out into a community or come into love or come into something, even your own history. Like you still have those questions that come along with that. So it does, those two things are not always mutual, which is very interesting. But no, and so then going into, as we think about how, we've had, the LGBT plus Q plus community has been on the front lines, but then we've also had an influx of allies who come from a cisgendered and or straight background. And as they begin to garner understanding of the importance of representation, they should start to see like the nuances that come along with that, such as the potential of a member of the LGBT plus community experiencing gender dysphoria, but also in the trans community specifically. And early on, Nadir, our protagonist, is essentially misgendered by a medical professional, which sparks a great level of discomfort, to say the least, in an already compromising situation. Could you speak to the importance of applied representation and equality for the trans community, and how Nadir struggles with the power shift of stepping into his own identity while preserving and searching for himself among a community of people and a system that has not set up to actually cater or even support him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this character, like, because throughout the novel, he's sort of trying to understand himself better while at the same time dealing with the fact that he's not able to communicate that to people yet. And so
Yeah.
he's suffering from that. And yet, like, it's really difficult. He can't really blame anybody else for not knowing, because he hasn't found a way to tell them. And I think,
Mm.
you know, in that particular scene that you were mentioning, like, I mean, trans people are very often discriminated against in healthcare settings. And like in that scene, like he's not out to that doctor, but like what's happening for him there is that there's this already potent combination of misogyny and racism that's happening against him, where his pain is not being believed, he's not being listened to. And so, you know, healthcare providers absolutely do need to be more sensitive to trans people, and a lot of like people who provide services or are in positions of power do need to do that. But at the same time, like, and you know, of course, there also needs to be, like, specifically when we're talking about access to like reproductive health care, and the language that we use around that care does of course need to be more inclusive of people who aren't cis women. But at the same time, like, the fact remains that like that the racism and misogyny that were happening in that scene are also like just as important and harmful as the transphobia that's happening. So like those are also, those things getting addressed are going to benefit all, not just all trans people, but all, I mean, all of us in general. So, you know, I think there's like, it's of course like people are learning, and like especially when somebody comes out, like when I first came out, like I didn't expect people to like immediately get, you know, a new pronoun or a new name. Like there's patience there for people, obviously, especially people that love you, you know.
Yeah.
But I think that like there's also an awareness that as the more that we talk about it and we engage with the people, especially the people close to us, that like that's how they get it, hopefully, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Like, you know, I think, you know, that sort of chosen family aspect, the people that you select for your own life, you know, it's interesting. There's a, you know, and I think that's, you know, that's experience that a lot of us have of like, you know, when, you know, finding the balance in the overall patience, because of course, you know, our loved ones and those who have been there with us, for us through all of this, you know, that's a given. But, you know, it's hard to give that patience to someone that already has a history in their profession of not taking care of anyone who is not cis white male. You know, it's
Yeah.
you know, the history of Black women specifically, and in the Black community, but Black women specifically, you know, there are a lot more at home births and just coming back out of it, because, you know, it's just the safety and the concerns around that, you know, that's a big deal. So, you know, that's a note, you know, to all of the doctors out there and all those working in the medical profession, you know, we need you, but you know, we need to feel safe as well. And you know, I think that this book is a great platform to shed light on that. So thank you for giving us some of your highlights on your book, The 30 Names of Night. You know, you've written a book that truly pushes the clarity of history and defining the present, as well as shaping your future. And so I think that you're going to be a great champion in our next segment that we like to call our lightning round.
Lightning!
All right. So here's how this one will work. I'm going to ask you 3 questions regarding your book. And for all of you watching on our stream, if you chime in and comment on those questions, then you get entered in to win the prize of all prizes, a free copy of the book, The 30 Names of Night by Zeyn Joukhadar. We hope that you guys all participate. Zeyn, are you ready to go into the lightning round?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. All righty. First one's really, really easy. First question. What's your favorite bird?
I really like crows. They're extremely intelligent. They can recognize faces. They can use tools. They're super, super cool birds. So I like them.
That's awesome. They are intelligent. I remember, you know, the bird, like Birds, Alfred Hitchcock. That was like, oh wow, okay. So yeah. Question number 2. Do the murals represent a chance for Nadir to give back, release, or leave a stamp on history?
I think it's all 3. I mean, because he's connecting to the history of his community and his family. He's accepting that he can't know everything. There's just some things he can never know. And then he's also trying to weave himself into the tapestry of that history and be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love that triple crown. So question number 3, our final question is going to be, what's one thing that you hope that young trans people specifically are able to take away from the Dear story?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it can be a kind of roadmap that I didn't have when I was a kid, especially for trans people that exist outside of the sort of mainstream narrative of transness. I mean, I think it's important I needed to know, and I think other people probably need to know, that we're not anachronisms, that we have really rich histories within each of our individual communities, and that we've always been here. And I think that it's really important to know the history of, personal history as well as collective history, let's say, in order to be able to envision and build your future. I think that's super important.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Oh God, you hit something. You hit the mainstream of transness. Could you talk about, like, because I know how that relates to me, the mainstream of, all of my demographics or whatever, but like, what is it like when you're finding yourself in this mainstream society? It's almost like you don't, alternative is cool, but not as cool because, acceptance is becoming more mainstream. I think that creating that space, whether you do it accurately or well, is another thing. So I'm curious, like, what is it, I don't know what my question is exactly, but I just, like, are you able to touch on maybe hindrances or helpful moments of, like, what it is to actually live in your identity in the mainstream society?
Well, I think that there's a difference between, like, there being some, let's say, tolerance, maybe more acceptance of trans people in terms of, like, certain prescribed mainstream narratives, like that if you are white, if you're wealthy, if you're able-bodied, if you're thin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're in a relationship that, sort of can look heterosexual from the outside, let's say, or if you can, appear to be cis or adhere to cis standards of beauty, like all of those things, that sort of becomes a prerequisite a lot of the time for who gets to be perceived as being able to and worthy of living, like, a livable life. Like, that's who is perceived as being, like, worthy of survival. And when you look at the difference between that demographic and what happens to, like, Black trans women, like, the difference is so stark. And I just think that, like, we are so far from actually being, like, having equal, human rights in society, where, like, the people that are the most marginalized, even among trans people, can actually, like, live their lives. That tells me everything that I need to know about how far we have to go,
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, congratulations, Zeyn. You have done an amazing job as our champion for the lightning round.
Yay!
Joe, who is our lucky viewer who won a prize?
Brandon, our lucky viewer today is Sarah Blount. Sarah Blount, you can come on down and pick up your copy or add it to your delivery locally in Baltimore, Towson, Catonsville, or have it shipped anywhere in the country for $5 or less. Great job, Zeyn!
Great job. Thanks, Sarah, for tuning in and commenting. As Joe said, we can include it in your delivery, which, if you don't know, everyone, we deliver always to the Baltimore, Catonsville, and Towson areas. And we always accept lovely tips for our hard-working delivery fairies, just so you know. Also, you can ship anywhere in the country for no more than $5. I don't know anybody that's doing that. You should shop at our bookstore. Thank you so much, Zeyn, for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. But before we let you go, what's next for you? Are we working on book number 3? Are we taking a trip home? Are we having some wine? What's next?
Well, I did just finish a first draft of a next novel. It's all I can say, because it's still sort of top secret, the details of it. But it's a sci-fi book with an all-trans cast, and I'm really into it. But I can't say anything else. And, now that the draft is done, there will definitely be lots of, like, lying in the sun and naps. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I love I love that. I just listen. I'm gonna manifest in the universe option being picked up for a sci-fi trans story. Someone pick that up. I don't care. I'm ready for it already. Giving you
Thank
that
you.
energy. Zeyn, are there any organizations that you would like to take this moment, or causes you'd love to take this moment to shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's two things that, like, for me, have been really on my mind lately. One is people need to call their representatives about what's happening in Afghanistan right now.
Yeah.
I've been sharing stuff on social media too. Like, folks can go to, I even posted a document on social media with like resources and with like a call script that you can use to call your representatives. So definitely do that. And then also, like, there's a huge fuel crisis going on in Lebanon right now that's affecting a lot of my friends and loved ones. And it's affecting not just like everyday people who can't, use their cars, for example, and don't have electricity, but also it's affecting things like hospitals and schools. And like a lot of schools are closing right now. And so there's, ways that you can, places you can donate and ways you can get the word out about that. I've also been trying to post those on social media. There's a ton of them. So I think folks should try to do what they can about those and look for those resources for sure.
Amazing. We're absolutely going to share that with the rest of this link. We appreciate you for bringing that to light. Everyone, please look into that. Call your representatives, write postcards, take action if you really want to make some change happen. Conversations are necessary. Conversations are great. Action is what's needed. Thank you again, Zeyn, for joining us. We really, really appreciate having you around. Zeyn Joukhadar spends a journey of discovering and embracing oneself in the 30 Names of Night. It is available for purchase right here at Charm City Books. Thank you, Zeyn, for taking the time with us once again.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Amazing. And we thank you all for joining us on the live stream. We appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and have a little chit chat. We'll see you next week, of course, same time, same place. Stay hydrated, get vaccinated, and wear a mask, everyone. We're not out of the woods yet. And come down to Charm City Books and pick up a book. We see you guys next time. Take care.
Your vaccination appointment.
Take it to your vaccination appointment. You might be there for a second. Something to read.